largest rodents to lizards, frogs, and even fully grown deer. And if they have made a kill from an animal like a deer, they can, once they've eaten that, they probably won't have to eat again for a year. And of course, like all snakes, they have a forked tongue which gathers the senses of smell and taste from the air and draws them into the snake's mouth so it can process them. But also because a friend of mine has handled anacondas, and probably the anaconda's best way of defending itself when it's handled is to exclude some sticky white paste out of its rear end, and it smells horrific. Now, my friend has actually handled anacondas before, and he got that stuff on his shirt and his jacket, and he just had to throw them both away because there was no way he was able to get rid of it. I mean, you can handle anacondas in the wild, and it takes a firm grip to restrain them because, as you can see here, you need to get behind the head. Once you have control of the head, you've got control of the snake. And it takes a firm grip to restrain an anaconda, but these snakes are tough enough to constrict crocodiles to death. So it won't hurt the snake even a little, although you kind of get wound into a serpent straitjacket. As you can see from these teeth here, even if you were not bitten by one, it wouldn't kill you. But what I meant to say is if you were bitten by one, it's not venomous, although a bite from one would be extremely painful. This is their range. Another thing about the anaconda that I forgot to mention is that there's actually a tribe in Colombia, here in this part of South America, where they have a unique relationship with the anacondas in the jungle, because they actually see the anaconda as it's like their reincarnated ancestors, and that to handle one proves that you're one of the tribe, and they don't harm them at all. So in Colombia, they have a very unique relationship with these anacondas. But also, the anaconda is probably, although it's also my favourite snake, it's also, to me, probably the most legendary of all snakes. I mean, it's quite possible that J.K. Rowling, who wrote Harry Potter, based the basilisk, the giant serpent of Salazar Slytherin, on the anaconda. But now I'm going to move on to the second cat of South America, but also the largest ranging land carnivore in all the Americas. It is the puma. Now, the puma is found in North, Central and South America. In fact, it's the only big cat to live very far south. And it goes by many different names. The puma, cougar, panther, or the mountain lion, but I prefer to use puma because it's a lot easier to pronounce. These pumas are found in the Andes mountain range, and the Andes is the longest mountain range on the planet. It stretches all the way across South America, and the pumas of the Andes are a vital part of the mountain ecosystem, but for many years their behaviour was little studied. I mean, the scientists were quite sure what they did, what the pumas mostly do during the day. They sleep. But what a puma does at night is a different story. And how you could check to see how the pumas survive in the Andes, because in one place in the Andes in Patagonia, which is Torres del Paine National Park at the southern tip of the Andes, there's a higher concentration of pumas there than anywhere else on Earth. And it's all down to one thing. This. This is guanaco. The guanaco is a relative of the camel, but it's also the continent's most challenging prey. They stand just over 2 meters tall, are 3 times the weight of an adult puma, and they are constantly alert. Almost impossible to catch during the day, and if they sense or see a puma, they let out a neighing call, and then that gets all of the others on alert. But at night time, the tables are turned. With very difficult night vision, the guanaco are vulnerable to a puma. That is when the puma does much of its hunting. As pumas, like all members of the cat family, are nocturnal as well as diurnal, which means nocturnal meaning active at night and diurnal active in daytime. Of course, it's all down to the fact that because they have night vision that's said to be 6 times more powerful than ours, because the reflective layer of cells at the back of their eyes that enhances their night vision. But also, if you shine a light on a puma, you'll get an almost bright green eye shine back from them, which is actually pretty incredible. Now, how a puma hunts a guanaco is it has to use stealth and cunning. Well, it has to creep up to within no more than 3 or 5 meters to its prey, and as soon as it's close enough, the puma will charge, jump onto its back, and then they have to tackle the guanaco to the ground, and then the puma will go for the throat and suffocate it. Of course, when I said about the guanaco being the most challenging prey, they can also be quite dangerous because a well-placed kick could be fatal to a puma. Of course, the puma is quite a relentless predator, and they can take on a fully grown guanaco that is 3 times their weight. And puma is about the same size and weight as an adult human, but of course we'd be no match for them in a fight. And if a puma is alone when it's made a kill, it can't possibly eat a guanaco of such large size in one go. So what they do is, once they've eaten their fill, they will hide the carcass under a lot of brush and to make sure it's out of view of scavengers like condors, foxes, and of course other pumas, and then they'll come back to it between 2 or 3 evenings and eat the rest of it. Of course, like all members of the cat family, pumas are solitary with the exceptions of mothers and their young. The female pumas will quite often have 3 to 5 cubs who will stay with her for 2 or 3 years, and until they're old enough to hunt and fend for themselves, they have to rely on their mother for food every week. And males a lot of the time are solitary, and quite often if 2 males meet, they clash over territory and breeding rights. But for years it was speculated that Puma meetings often ended with fighting, but recent discoveries have shown that pumas don't actually fight a lot when they meet. So, quite often they share a kill, which is actually quite surprising. And of course, when I said about puma being the same size and weight as a human, pumas have known to be man-eaters, but a lot of the time they're only dangerous to us if they're frightened, cornered, protecting cubs, or when they haven't eaten for several days, which is when they're at their most dangerous. And a puma is more than capable of killing a fully grown man. So if you are ever out in the Andes, if you're on your own, it is very wise that you don't act like a prey animal. Especially, just don't panic and don't run, because then you will be attacked. Of course, here is the Pumas range. Well, a range in the Andes. Move the camera there. Sorry about this. Yeah, that is there. The Andes stretches all the way down this side of South America. And of course the Torres del Paine National Park is somewhere around here. Of course that is where the pumas are mostly found. And as I mentioned, the Andes mountain range is the best place in the world to see pumas in the wild. But even so, it isn't guaranteed that you'll be able to see pumas in the wild if you go there. Right, now then. I'm going to show you all one of the weirdest animals in all the world. It's also one of South America's giants. It is the giant anteater. Now, the giant anteater is one of the most bizarre creatures on the planet. I mean, for starters, it's that long snout. I mean, almost looks like it just got its nose trapped in a door and just kept on pulling and pulling and pulling until its nose completely stretched out. And you're all probably wondering why I've got this animal as a predator of South America. Well, they are predators, but they are specialists in taking on ants and termites. Because they are insectivores, which means they eat insects, and of course they hunt termites, and of course breaking into a termite mound is a little bit like breaking into a bank, or trying to break into a bank, because the termite mounds are made from mud mixed with termite saliva, and they can set as hard as concrete, so it's very, very hard for any animal to get into a termite mound, but the anteater is a specialist at that. And how they do it is with these enormous claws, which are strong enough to rip into a termite mound as if it was made of butter. And then, once they've broken a hole into the mound, they use their second weapon, a long, sticky, mucus-covered tongue that can be longer than their body, to lap up thousands of termites. But of course, before the fearsome soldiers start biting, the anteater just trundles off towards another termite mound. Anteaters are found throughout South America. I mean, they mostly come out in the daytime, but in places like the plains of Guyana or the Pantanal, the largest wetland on Earth, the anteaters prefer to come out at night when it's cooler. And despite the fact that these are herbivores, well, insectivores, meaning they only feed on insects, they are considered one of South America's most dangerous animals, because, as you can see here, they can stand as tall as a man, and they've been known to use their massive claws to kill jaguars and even humans in what's known as a death hug. But the only time that they actually do that is if the anteater is frightened, cornered, threatened or is protecting young.